If you don't start, we won't have begun. There you go. That is how we edit that in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Andy Duke.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. And you.
Thank you. And to you.
Thank you. Cheers.
And to Jake.
Oh, hello. He's behind the scenes doing wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. Great.
So today we are finally having a look at this big bad boy, and I am pointing
To
base.
the base rather than any appendage.
Yes.
Yes. We're maybe less than a minute in. Already we have gone there. This is the type of flavour that we're going to be delivering.
Well, it's been the flavour of the whole build.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh dear. The Pioneer base. This is the 34-inch scale base, not to be confused with its little brother.
The little brother is still an instrument that packs quite the punch.
It's the big little brother.
It's the big little brother. It's the little brother that is loud and raucous and possibly might steal your girlfriend.
He's like the scrappy do.
Yes, very
Isn't
much
he?
so.
Like, he'll have a go.
Oh, he has a go. Oh, he has a go.
Yes.
I mean, this has been conceived within an inch of its life at each and every stage. And working with Lewis has been immersive, it's been enjoyable, and it's been a real honor to be involved with each and every stage of the build, from staring at blanks of wood and kind of choosing sonically what we were after, as well as to a certain extent the aesthetics of it, to go from that to where I was receiving photos of just wood.
Oh, careful.
Of samples of wood. Careful. Of wood that would be appropriate for the build of what would eventually become the space. To go from that to then discussing the almighty beautiful finish that this instrument displays, down to all the hardware, has just been, an incredibly enlightening and enjoyable experience for me.
despite its looks, it wasn't just thrown together.
No, no.
There was a lot of thought, even from what pickups to where they are
Mm,
on the base, the circuitry. Yeah, this is really was by joint design, really.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? I mean, the wood selection, in some ways, some people might see it as a basic because it's not a coffee table base.
No,
It's
it's
not a
not.
brown base where we've gone for really high figured woods. We used, just because it's great, plain maple for the neck, so 3-piece laminate neck, and then put an ebony fingerboard over the top. That's pretty classic. But the body, we we had the thought of doing something loud because neither of us particularly like fun sponges.
No, fun sponges are to be avoided at all
Yeah,
costs.
don't become one,
Yeah.
kids.
If you're a fun sponge, you need to look at another channel.
Yeah,
Go to
this
another
is
video.
this is not the Fun Sponge
No,
channel. We should
most
get
definitely not.
a sign made that
Yeah.
flash. Can we do that?
Yeah.
We do that. Yeah,
We can do that in post.
yeah. So the body then, because we didn't want the coffee table bass, we didn't want another brown bass out there,
No.
because bass players deserve to be seen. Um, and what gets you seen better than a really cool hot rod looking kind of paint finish? And then that is on top of, we chose a bishi, and that's the core wood of the body. 2-piece Abishi body, which adds to the lightweight of the overall instrument.
And the inspiration for Obishi was the Pioneer short scale bass,
Yeah,
which I reviewed on Jake Lee Guitar's channel. And that's what introduced me to LT Custom Guitars and began my love affair with all things LT Custom Guitar bass related.
I'm not sure the camera will pick it up, but it's here. I think it's just there.
Mm.
Just
I,
that's a shot from it. In fact,
yeah. Here's one we made earlier.
and then just to cap it off, maple cap, and there is actually quite a figured maple cap under the paintwork as a bit of a. I won't do it because I don't want to swear on the channel, but as a little bit of a, if you know it's there.
If you know it's there, you're aware.
Yes.
Beneath this gorgeous hot rod finish, figured maple, stripy goodness. I tell you what, if we decided to go the coffee table route, this would blow your mind. We know it's there.
Yeah.
Nobody else needs
Yeah.
to know.
No, because we saw it.
We saw it.
And that was like, the two of us have seen it.
Yes.
Nobody else can see this. Now that's like you've seen enough of this one.
Yeah, you've seen enough of that one. Let's paint over it.
Yeah.
Best left unsolved, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the maple adds over the Abishi. I think it tightens it up, adds a bit of punch.
Articulation aplenty.
Articulation, that's the word.
The response is so fast, and I think that is thanks to the maple,
Yeah.
the maple cap. Absolutely.
I really threw, I'll name drop Paul Flatley here because he played it through his bass rig, and it really threw him. The punch and articulation in this was almost too much for his headphone rig. It's something you kind of have to experience, I think, but all by design.
Very much so. And surprisingly, despite all of that punch and all that warmth as well, this, the punchy sound, everything that's here, a smidge over £8, 8 freedom pounds. That is unbelievable. Sometimes when I use it live, I forget that there's a bass around my shoulder.
I
So,
remember messaging you
mm,
almost worried about the weight, wasn't I?
mm,
Because coming from predominantly building guitars, an £8 guitar, it's not necessarily heavy, but it's, I do try for a lot of my pioneers to be around the £6 mark.
mm.
If I'm using a Bishi or Polonia, it's quite common for them to be closer to £5. So £8, I was a little bit worried, messaged you and was like, not sure. And you came back with a certain brand and you were like, you're lucky if these are under 10.
I have owned many wonderful basses that sound great, they look great, but have felt like boat anchors, and which have genuinely kind of have 2 to 3, nearly in one case, uh, £4 over this one. So just having a smidge above £8 is incredibly light. More importantly, it's really light but incredibly well balanced. I can go hands free, baby, and we are good.
I've got it on video somewhere. I held it, we won't do it on the couch, but
Mm.
I actually held it through the lower cutaway, balanced on one. It balances. I'm a believer in you don't need all that real estate that you have on a lot of bases. Not necessarily like 2 and 2,
Mm.
but the 4 in line or the 5 in line or the 4 and 1, they they take up a lot of room, and it's just one of those things where why? Some people might come at it from a tonal mass point of view, but I look at it as a player and go, I don't want neck dive.
No, neck dive is to be avoided, and there's many an iconic bass which suffers from it, but not this one.
No.
And this is iconic in its own unique, special way.
The Delano pickups.
Yes,
We've got Alnico.
yes, an Alnico split pickup, and by design, the Music Man style pickup is ceramic. Um, having a long history with a bass manufacturer with the initials of MM, I am very fond of the ceramic version of the pickup that they produce, and this was very much a case of wanting to have the best of both worlds in terms of my past experience with pickups of this style. In terms of Delano and how they advertise things on their website, they're very strident about not mixing.
Yes.
I disagree wholeheartedly, and sonically, proof is in the pudding.
These were the two sets, weren't
Mm.
they? That they. Ooh, don't do
No,
that.
no, no, no. Like if you want to have an Alnico P, you better have an Alnico, MM style pickup, and vice versa. And I am so pleased that the combination has been absolutely has been a real game changer. one thing which I was doing at home around the time that we were talking about configurations is to play about with a bass body that has a swimming pool in it. I have a bass at home which is only used for testing pickups. And it looks like this, only there's basically a swimming pool. And I was able to play about both with these pickups as well as their location to make sure that it um, was able to deliver sonically what I was hearing in my head and my virtual ears. And to go from that to this finished product has been painstaking. I mean, I've sent you measurements to the millimeter in terms of where things should go. And the result is something which I think is incredibly unique and very much its own thing. Yes, this is a split P pickup. Yes, this is a pickup that you would associate with an bass, but the way they engage with each other is unique. The actual P pickup itself, the way that the pole pieces are configured, is more akin to what you would see on an style bass, and it means that the sonic marriage blends really, really well. I know that in the world of TalkBass, there are other forums. There is a great deal of criticism from the um, users of that fine resource about the whole precision and Music Man combination. And in many cases, they may be justified through testing both these pickups, this set of pickups, as well as other options. We made sure that the talk base critical eyes and ears, that their concerns would not would not come into play. And as a result, there's something here which is sonically unique. That both sets of pickups work incredibly well together, and thanks to the Sadowski circuitry, it means that we have the option to blend between the two. So there isn't just a case of being, just this or just that or the two together. You can have any combination in between. And as well as a passive tone control, which you can, by flicking that switch, by pulling that knob pot upwards, you're able to turn the active circuitry off and still have the means to be able to control your tone. So with a lot of active passive options, when you go passive, it's often get out of jail type of dynamic where
Like
it means you can get through the gig.
if you're playing live and you
Yeah.
throw your bass around, the battery flies out of
Yeah,
the
I heard that happened to somebody recently.
yeah, and you then what do you do?
Well, you do, yeah. So instead of, right, you need to change bases, and if you have something as lovely as this, you don't want to change the base. You just flick that switch upwards, and you're in passive mode with full passive tone capability. So if I want to roll off a bit of high end, I can do that here, and that's what happened when you saw us in Camden a few months back, and the bass still sounded great.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that anything had changed at that point.
Let's talk about the controls. Do you want control? I'm going to give it to you. Volume, blend, passive tone pot, which also is able to allow you, with the flick or pull of a switch, to go from active to passive. And finally, the Sadowski bass and treble stacked knob. This is an incredibly, incredibly powerful EQ device. And I find that the best results are to use 20 to 30% of each. To go 100% gives you too much of everything. Sometimes too much of everything is a lovely thing, and it's great to have that headroom. For me, when I'm using it active, I barely use it. And that's the secret to getting the best out of the Sadowski circuitry. And the style pickup is controlled by this lovely toggle, which enables parallel, just one coil. So it gives you a sound which is in the jazz bass bridge pickup territory, the tiny amount of Rickenbacker thrown in. This coil here is located just a little bit closer to the neck, of where you would find the jazz bass pickup on a jazz bass with 1960 string spacing rather than 1970s. And finally, if you want to have that extra push over the cliff that Nigel Tufnell would approve of, you can go in series, which is certainly the most loudest, certainly is the loudest and most boisterous of all the settings. And I have also found that just using the this pickup, the pickup on its own, when just using the bridge pickup coil, it does ooze quite a bit of Rickenbacker 4001 realness. And again, that's because the location is quite similar to where you would find the bridge pickup on a 4001 bass. Ultimately, this instrument was never about trying to mimic the sound of a P or a J or an but to come up with sounds which are familiar, which we know work in the mix, but in their own special way. And that's what I've really been enjoying, both live and uh, in studios, that I can dial up really, really appropriate sounds that can either hug the mix or can punch through it, depending upon what is needed. Different horses, different courses, different songs require different things. And thanks to the option of being able to use this passively, it can operate very much, in the old school bass tradition, and to give you sounds that are going to be instantaneously familiar. When you marry that with the Sadowski bass and treble boost only active EQ, anything is possible. For me, I find that from a mid range point of view, rather than entering into the arena of just scoop, um, the fact that the active bass and treble work alongside the passive tone control means that by reducing the passive tone control, when I boost the bass and treble, it also brings a little bit of mid range with it. So going active and using the boost functionality of this circuitry does not mean that it turns into a total and utter scoopathon. If you want to do that, you certainly can. And also for those detractors who feel that by default it's going to be a scooped instrument, this bass works so beautifully in passive mode. And I've found that with this combination of Delano pickups, that there is plenty of mid range on tap by default. And with the flick of a switch, to be able to go from something which is, old school and familiar, all the way to as modern and hi-fi as you want it, it's all available with a limited number of movements. These all of the pots here are very, very close to each other, and I can dial up really useful sounds that either hug or punch or produce an old school sound or something modern and hi-fi in an instant. And I can do it often in the middle of a song. So it becomes incredibly intuitive. And again, with the Sadowski bass and treble active EQ, a little bit goes a really, really long way. And there are ways in which you can achieve the sound that you want in your head by playing with the blend, by even playing with the volume control. There's so many ways that you can attenuate treble frequencies, and or to get hidden mid-range that you might not realize is here just with a tiny movement of your fingers on these pods.
Less is more.
Less is more.
Yeah, in this case.
In this case, absolutely, it's a two pickup instrument with four knobs, one of which is a stacked control. And ultimately, the toggle switch here, you may find that one setting works for you. However, you may have a gig in which specific kinds of sounds might be required. And having this degree of versatility that you can dial up in an instant is genuinely such a useful thing to have. And I've been able to use just this instrument on a number of sessions which have required very, very different sensibilities in terms of the low end, and have been able to do it just with this instrument here. The sonic signature is it's unique, and it has plenty of heft. And one thing which I really love about this is that it is near enough impossible to create a sound which you don't like. And let's face it, in many instances, I love jazz basses as much as the next person. However, apart from those people aspiring to, the Jacko sound, often the bridge only setting, it can be a bit anemic or limiting. I've found that I can get something that is very much sonically kind of adjacent to that, and so much more. And it's an absolute joy. If I want articulation and the means to be able to have a limited amount of sonic space, but to have that sonic space be really, really punchy and to be heard above everything else, I've got the means to do that. So I can lay back and be thuddy and dubby, or quite offensive and, oi, listen to me. I can do that within an instant, and just very easily. It is a fantastic machine. It really is. You've done a good job.
Thank you.
One thing about the placement of the split P pickup is that I was really inspired by the location of the P bass pickup on the Orange O bass. Adrian Elmsley from Orange, inspired by a friend of his in LA, decided to move the P pickup closer to the headstock 4 millimeters, and I found that to be quite a holy thing on the Orange O bass, which I've also used. Because this style P pickup is at the brighter end of the spectrum, the counterbalance of moving it a little bit closer to the fretboard has meant that you have all the authority and heft of a P bass with a little bit of MM articulation and clarity, and it's a wonderful marriage. And also one extra benefit which we hadn't thought about when coming up with this configuration is having the P pickup located forward by 4 millimeters means that the pickup is exactly where it is on an style bass. There is no compromise there. And for me, often when you see the configuration, the P pickup will be where the pickup normally is. And as a result, the pickup is located a little bit closer to the bridge than it normally would be. I find that change, and I discovered it when I was testing it with the swimming pool root bass that I have at home. It was a step too far. What I love about basses was lost a bit. I could remedy it with EQ and get it close, but the inherent passive sound of a Music Man pickup being that little bit closer to the bridge, it took something away that I really, really, really missed. And for me, having the P pickup being forward a bit creates its own special take on the P pickup vibe. and having the pickup where it should be means that this is really familiar, and it gives you a lot of those sounds. We were talking earlier on, it was never about being a parrot, and just duplicating, the sonic signature of these instruments. It was more being inspired by them and to come up with something which again is very much its own thing, with the added benefit of blend ability.
Mm.
Is that a word? It is now.
Yeah, that whole, I'm a big uh, believer in sculpting your own sound,
Mm.
but as we've covered, you've got the safety net of, if you like the P sound, or if you like the J sound,
Mm.
or the sound,
Absolutely.
or the boosted sound in series, you have those there. But with the blend controls and the active EQ, you can dial it in, and that's where I think, obviously, take inspiration from other things, but when you really find your own sound, um, you've got a lot to play with there to find it.
Yeah, every day it feels like a new opportunity in which I'm playing the space. And live, with a lot of the gigs that I've been doing across different acts, and in some cases, function gigs, I found that my set and forget zone, which I didn't think would be the case, is a blend between the two pickups with a tiny, tiny click, just a little bit towards the P pickup, tone all the way up, and to play with the bass and tone to taste. That's giving me, in many ways, the best of both worlds. And that is also where the real uniqueness of what this bass offers is found. And that's a really, really exciting thing, which I didn't anticipate. Obviously, when I was working on the potential pickup locations on my swimming route bass, I was doing that on a completely different body, completely different neck. So I was just looking at the circuitry and the pickup options. The locations of these pickups with this circuitry, with this body, with the maple cap and the obishi,
Bishi.
the obishi body, is where the alchemy really truly comes into its own. And it has so much articulation and so much natural punch that um, it becomes an exercise in taming that to get old school sounds. And thanks to the circuitry, that's done so easily. And to have all of that in one instrument is absolutely amazing. Often when I've been going through long periods with a P style bass, I love it, and it can feel like home. But sometimes I will miss the articulation of a J style bass or an style bass. And as a result, I've found myself, depending upon the gig, gravitating towards one or favoring one over the other. And there's always been a little bit of a compromise with that. This this Pioneer bass means that I don't have that compromise anymore. It's just all there, it's all on tap. And as a result, my J, my P, and my have sat gathering dust, looking at me and this bass in a jealous manner. It's given me a complex, and maybe I need to put those instruments in a different location because the guilt, it's crippling me. It's too much. I don't know if I can handle it anymore. All joking aside, it's I have all the sounds that I want in one instrument, and they're all really useful, usable, and deliver very much their own thing. And what more do you want? And it's a unique sonic signature. Does it sound exactly like a P? No, nor should it. Does it sound exactly like an No, nor should it. The combination is by default very, very, very unique. The most important thing for me is that are all the sounds that I can get out of it usable, useful, and something that I want to employ. Absolutely, 100%. Beautiful bass.
What about if you want the funk? What about when you need more funk? Yeah, but what if you just got to say, funk that? So I think what I will say now is obviously this is quite a huge spec base, and we have no intention of watering this down any. If you want to send a message saying, that's lovely, could you build me a brown one? No, no.
You're a fun sponge.
Yeah,
Look elsewhere.
we don't do that here.
No,
Not anymore.
no.
You can pick two colours, two metallic colours, and we'll fade them. Yeah.
What if I wanted brown and like a lighter brown?
No, not here.
What about like a coffee with a bit of a mocha?
Oh, no. What we've come across here is something that you need to experience if you are serious about your bass playing.
100%. And as a person who has used PJ style basses, I love the PJ combination. And on Spectre instruments, they do their own variation on it. I've always found that it sounds best either all P or P and J, but often the J on its own, as I mentioned earlier, can be a bit anemic. There's ways that you can get that to work, obviously. And in many, many, many cases, when you have a split P pickup, anything that is located closer to the bridge tends to be a compromise or gets overshadowed. Not with this. This is an instrument where the bridge pickup has authority. It is not. It is not a wimpy sibling. It is not the embarrassing cousin that you do not want to invite to the party. It's here at the party and it wants to say hello. It's this combination and out. If you don't like it, you need to look elsewhere.
You do?
Jog on.
Yeah. So the full spec, if we've forgotten to talk about anything because we've been sat here a while, it's all on the website. You can see it on the model page. These are available to order. There will be one up on the stand at shows next year for demo purposes, things like that. But yeah, ideally, these are, with the color and things like that, these are kind of meant to be an extension of you. Like get you seen, a little bit of your personality in there. So pick two colors, we'll spray them. It's fine. And I think on that bombshell.
What if I wanted like beige
No.
into like a hot chocolate?
No. And on that, because there's too much fun spongeness creeping in now, we'll say take good care and we'll see you soon.